Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here on Sunday afternoon for All Access Live. Today is episode 2 of our fantastic Dumb and Drummer series. It was crafted by the lovely Andrew Greene. Before we get started with them, we want to thank 5 Star Guitars for being a supporter of All Access Live. If you're a guitarist and you're looking for gear and you've priced out some great guitars online, shop there and then go to 5 Star and check it out. They have no sales tax, so you're going to find a greater guitar and a great deal and be able to support a local group. So tell Joff Metz that we sent you looking, and they also have repairs and instruction. So if you want to get instruction virtually or in person by phenoms like Jennifer Batten, give 5 Star Guitars a shout and they'll hook you up. Go to www.5starguitars.com, and thank you again, 5 Star, for supporting All Access Live. I know it may sound funny to have 5 Star support a Dumb and Drummer episode, but since they do instruction, it may be a great opportunity for your children that are looking for instrumentation to go in there and even book appointments for possible drum instruction from some of our educators on this episode. So before we get into the full shenanigans, I think we're going to introduce everybody here. The founder of this Drummers Collective, Andrew Greene, is here. Andrew, you want to introduce yourself and tell people where you're from?
Sure. I am Andrew. I am from, most notably, the GNR tribute, Appetite for Deception, and anyone else who will have me. There's a Foreigner tribute. I am on about half of the Loyal Order record that just came out, so I'm as busy as possible.
Yeah, well, it's good to stay busy right now. Speaking of busy,
especially now,
we have the next guest I want to introduce. They are celebrating their 34th wedding anniversary today, and so this is a beautiful thing to have them spend this romantic time with us. Michael and René Jarmer, thank you guys for being here.
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome. You're Oregonians through and through, right?
True.
Okay.
Natives. Yeah, we have the web feet.
And we were talking just before the conversation that you've been married 34 years and most notably known for your band that also had its origin from the same time in 1986. Is that right? So
yeah.
Here Comes Everybody.
Yeah, we were babies.
And besides Here Comes Everybody, you also have some other ventures of your own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been drumming over the last few years in a cover band called the New Wavers, which is Blake Sakamoto's band. He did a stint in the Dan Reed Network in the 80s, and that's how we met him, and we've been in touch for many years. And he just called me up and said, "Hey, I need another drummer." I am one of maybe 3 or 4 drummers in the New Wavers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
Kenny Davis is the main dude.
Yeah, we had him in our last collective.
Whenever Kenny has a conflict, which is often because he's doing this thing called My Happy Pill.
Right.
So they're pretty busy. So well, until the COVID-19.
Right.
I was pretty busy with the New Wavers.
You said the C word, man. You were the first to go there.
Sorry, the C
No, it's
word.
good. It's all right. How about you, René?
Hi.
So Here Comes Everybody's the primary.
Yeah, even though I'm a drummer, when we, 2 drummers, someone had to write the melodic content, so I play keyboards and piano and all of that, and so I was his main songwriter. He would write all the lyrics, but for Here Comes Everybody, so that band. And I also have filled in for the New Wavers once in a while last year. It was like, we're kind of a house full of drummers, so it's one-stop shop for drummers over here. It's like, can Michael do it? No, he's busy. Well, can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So, and I've played in a lot of other bands. I play with Nicole Campbell right now.
Right on.
Have in the past as well, just a freelance. I've played with an all-female David Bowie tribute band, which I'm not doing anymore. I play with Pilar French, who's a really great bass player.
Yeah.
And I just freelance. I play musical theater. I teach privately. I get called for doing studio work, and I also teach a drum line, which is a really big deal for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. The Kingsman Thunder.
Kingston Thunder Drumline. Your son was in it for a while.
That's right, he was.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's good to get those chops together. And I know you do a lot of partnership with Alan Cowan's drum camps too, right?
Yes, I'm on staff there, and I've been on staff for about 4 years, except for this year they had a virtual camp and he had to cut staff to really like a bare bones. So it just happened last week, and so my son, who's 14, he did the camp and he's been doing it, and he's in my drum line. So we're a whole family of drummers over here.
Nice. That's
But I
awesome.
love what I do. I'm very passionate about music and music education, and about teaching and rocking out.
Rocking out.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of rocking out and family drummers, Keith Parkhurst, my friend, is not only a phenomenal drummer and songwriter too. He's also he's partnered up with a drummer in his household. So Cheryl Brand Cheryl Bland wanted to wish Mr. and Mrs. Jarmer a happy anniversary. But Keith, you want to talk a little bit about your origin here in the area?
Well, Cheryl actually, she actually is not a drummer. She's marched for many, many years, including the Santa Clara Vanguard, but
Oh.
she is a color guard, better than drummers. So
Yeah.
she actually offers something other than noise.
Right.
I was, when I was young, we called it metal then. Now it's kind of hard rock because metal is much different than what we called metal back in the 70s and 80s. But I did a couple of original projects back then called Triax when I was in high school, and Rose City Rocks. I had a lot of fun with them. We were doing really well, but life happens.
Yeah.
And I ended up, when I left Rose City Rocks, I had surgery, C567, Kevin. And when I came back around, well, life had changed, and I was a supervisor. I had a baby coming. It was like, and so I kind of went out of, other than just tapping around to please myself once in a while. I really quit playing for, quite a long time. And I had a good corporate life, and then actually it was a weird thing. I started having a lot of shoulder troubles because I used the laptop to slay the world, and it betrayed me. And out of that, though, I never could have set out to do this, but out of that, I was just persistent. I didn't want to suffer every moment of every day, and I went after a chiropractor and acupuncture, and I just kept going, and I finally got hooked up with a doctor and a physical therapist. They hit me with the cortisone. They started doing work on me. I weighed 250 pounds. I was a short, fat, balding office worker, and we were making progress on that, and the lady tells me, we need to get you doing some exercises or anything you like to do. And I said, well, I used to play drums, but I can't threaten a keystroke because that's how I make my money. She said, let's try that. You know what? It became part of my physical therapy to play drums.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started what my little company, I announced on April Fool's Day of 2012, I, Keith Parkhurst, am a musician, and I incorporated percussion, and I started just getting into it, from hand drums to full-on metal, whatever I could. I would just play music with people, and I got going in like 6 or 7 different things. I have to decide whether it's coming to my house, whether I was taking drums to work with me. 7 months after that, I got kicked out of my 30-year career. One day I went to work and they said, tomorrow's your last day. And so that was coming up on 8 years ago. And you helped me a lot, Kevin, to just try to figure out how I could cobble together not the same kind of income necessarily, but my living, doing music. And so I was playing drums. I also played just a little bit of campfire guitar. And one of those people I was playing drums with got me hooked up into why I have a Zoom room, because I work with stroke survivors and did skilled nursing, and would go in and perform and help. There's real neurology with the stroke stuff, singing when people can't speak because of aphasia. We are still doing, in my Zoom room here, I have a group of stroke survivors that I'm fortunate to meet. We have anywhere from 12 to 20 that show up every Monday to sing along with us, and it's pretty cool. In drumming, though, so I guess I'll play drums. I'll play with anybody. I actually think that it's all just music to me.
Yeah.
And I really love filling in for people because they pick the music and you go, wow, I never really listened. Wow, that's pretty cool. Nobody gets up to this level and didn't have something cool in there, right?
Plus, it's
Um,
a fun challenge to cram all that stuff for once, for one
it is
thing.
amazing, isn't it, Andrew? And I
Mm-hmm.
know you do it a lot, and nothing more of a charge than somebody that says, hey, I got this big gig and you got a whole set of music you don't even know
Yeah,
in 6 days.
and I trust you
And
to
I
get this
trust you.
down. Yeah.
One of the times they actually started the set. I met them on the stage and they started the set with a song that starts with the drums. I thought,
Oh my
well, you guys
gosh.
should trust me.
Yeah.
I most recently, before the sea, I had a couple of cover bands. My big hard rock cover band, the Water Buffaloes, just lots of fun. We were lots of fun. We can play with a lot of different groups, just do a different set list. I had another cover band that I was playing with, a little just rock club band stuff. Had a tribute to the Pretenders that with Twig Sullivan called Precious, and we were really starting to actually make some progress, I thought, on that. And I have a pop punk original band named Bad Ellie. Can I plug? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We have a show, and it's going to be an online show with the Northwest Talent Spotlight, Bobby Pilata, and those guys. They've got a totally cool pro soundstage, lights.
Oh,
It's
that's
the
great, man.
bands and the crew in the building, and it's going out online. And Bobby is an amazing. He just puts this stuff together. Like he did the Hair Fist videos, and he just sits
Yeah.
there and puts this together in real time, and the production is top quality. So on August 21st,
Okay.
Bad Ellie will be playing with Matt at Wagon on the Northwest Talent Spotlight.
Oh,
And I've
that's
probably
so
talked
good.
all I need to talk right
That's a great band, man. I can't wait to see that. August 21st.
now. August 21st. So much fun. I
Awesome.
love playing in the band there.
Right on. Right,
He's representing with the shirt there.
yeah, he is. I love it. Let's
Carol
talk.
told me it was clean.
Let's talk to the Idaho contingent here. Joe Spencer, man, how long have you been here in Portland?
Hey, Kevin. I'm celebrating my 10 years here now. So my 10-year transplant happened in October.
Sweet.
Pretty excited about being here. Thanks for the invitation, by the way.
Really glad to have you. You've got the Hulk and a China Boy behind you, so that's well represented here.
Oh, I have a short story for this actually. Now that you mentioned it, Kenny Aronoff signed that.
Oh,
I went to his drum clinic at Rhythm Traders, and I was so excited. I'm like, can I have your autograph? He's like, sure. What do you want me to sign? I'm like, off the shelf. Yeah,
that's how they get you.
that's how they
Yeah,
get you.
right.
How inspiring was that clinic from Kenny?
Hearing him warm up in the room we were adjacent to, because the line out there
Yeah.
was just waiting, and you just hear him doing his bucket of fish, like 6 minutes. So 200 times,
Right.
and on to the next one. It was just amazing. And then you go in there and you sit down, and it was like he was surrounded in like a halo. I mean, I just the lighting. I don't know. I'm from Indiana. Kenny's from Indiana, and I grew up in the whole John Mellencamp like school of church.
Sure. Yeah.
And just like the Jack and Diane Phil and the
Oh, yeah.
stories behind his
Oh, my
career
God.
making, like make it or break it, do the Phil,
Yeah.
and all of it, and just his mentality and his vibrance for life, and his effort and his discipline and his passion. Everything Kenny embodies is, I'm really proud to have shared time with him.
Man,
So for
sound
you
like-
to have, yeah.
You sound like you were just describing qualities of yourself, man. Honestly, you've the dedication, the passion, the real. There are very few people that I know that have put so much energy into not only perfecting their drumming craft, but your whole musical experience. And man, there's nobody more passionate than you that I know of. So, yeah,
Andrew, Keith,
well,
Merrill.
that's not to disparage anybody here, and we can get into this a little bit, but talking about using the current situation to our benefit to be productive is something that we'll talk about in a second, because you're really doing that. It does not go unnoticed. And so it's inspiring. It's really good to see. But we'll get into that in a second. You want to talk just a little bit about the bands that you've been part of?
Sure. Siri, set the alarm for 30 minutes. No, thank you again. Thanks for the invitation. For those that don't know, my name's Joe. I'm from Indiana, transplant to Idaho, transplant to Oregon. Most notably and most recently, I guess I've been known to play for some tribute bands like Motor Breath, the Metallica guys, Parabola, the Tool band, and at one point, I think 2 years ago, I was in 8 touring bands, traveling around, either sitting in on bass on a Monday and then playing the show with them on drums on Wednesday. Some bands out there like Vicious Rumors from Santa Cruz, Los Angeles, San Francisco area. Spawn, they're a local death metal band. The shortest story first. I started out as a country musician session player at 15, and then in the evenings would be in a death metal band. So the chops range continues to kind of expand, and as much as like Andrew and Keith, I love the challenge of short notice information. Find out somebody in the Dio tribute is sick. Bless you, Richie. Glad you're feeling better. And it was like, hey, can you play a 12-song Dio set tomorrow night? Sure, right, kind of thing. And for me, it's the passion of it, and that makes it fun. So the big difference for a lot of it is like a lot of people do it for fun. I do it for the passion, and it just feels so much more encompassing. So I certainly appreciate every opportunity to share the stage or the studio or sessions or any sort of creative time with anybody, and it's always lovely to give and receive energy.
Yeah, amen. I love that. Joe, by the way, Jason Fellman says in the chat here that you win the attire award. So
I was wondering if anyone noticed.
Yeah, there you go.
Nip slip.
Gold star for you, Joe.
Biased.
Yeah,
I drew that, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. It's the well timed. That's a Merrill Hale logo. I think your microphone might be muted, Merrill, but we'd love to introduce Merrill Hale on not only drums, but the artistry that has become the J Fell Network. So, Merrill, come on in.
Hey. Oh, hi, I'm Merrill Hale. I play drums. I used to play drums. Anyways, I played for a band called Ramble On for 10 years. And before that, it was I was in a Yes tribute band. It was I kind of shared the same. I shared the same members in the Yes tribute band and the Zeppelin tribute band. So, and did that for that was in the 2007. 2008, and then started to Ramble On after that. So
even before that, I know you're from Portland, and
I'm from Portland. Yeah, okay. I guess I should start with that.
You got some early bands.
Yeah, well, we go back quite a bit there, Kevin. So, matter of fact, I was in a band called Gravity Frog, which you were the original drummer for that, I guess, or planned to be the drummer for that, but I ended up being that. So, and from two guys from Montana, which you are from.
And before that, I know you had Voodoo Dolls, the Vultures, some other bands that these guys may know.
Yeah. I mean, I've done that too. So, yeah. Okay. I started playing drums when I was 13. I was very shy when I was in high school. I didn't play with anybody until I was like 21, 22, and then and that's when I joined Voodoo Dolls, and then a series of original bands after that, and then I got into a band called King Trout with McIsaac. The McIsaac brothers and Matt Franklin, and then at that time that's when we met with the Gravity Frog thing. So, and then I took a little hiatus after that. About 5 years I didn't play drums, and then I kind of got back into it. That's when I did the Yes thing. That's when I met my guitar player, Steve Adams, who's my guitar player. So,
There's some
and
overlap.
then, and I played with Blake too. Michael mentioned he played with the New Wavers. I played with Blake for 5 years with it wasn't really a band. It was more of a performance.
The Christmas thing?
Yeah, it was to see an electric. So, yeah.
And you also share some commonalities with René, that you've been a music educator, a drum educator for quite a while, the last decade or so.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I was back in when we met back in the 90s, I was a draftsman for a rail car manufacturer, and I did that for about 20 years. And then I just kind of felt like I needed to do something different. And about 2008, I started teaching privately, and I taught out of shops and I taught out of my home. And yeah, it's been, to tell you, that's kind of where I really started getting, I felt good about my playing when I started teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like constantly, just going over fundamentals and basics and rudiments and stuff. I mean, I have to play a 5-stroke roll, every day, kind of good.
There's a subtle influence that has on your playing, or maybe not so subtle, of either teaching or just going back to basics on a constant basis.
You have to break it down. You have to break it. If you have to break it down and explain it to another person, you'd have to be like, oh, I better do this right. And so it's kind of a self-diagnostic tool. It makes you do it better for others when you're teaching. And you have to be able to explain it 20 different ways.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was going to say. It's like, how am I going to approach it with this person or this person? And it's like an individual lesson for the individual. So, so I got, anyways, I did that for, all the way up. I still teach. I guess I kind of stopped during the pandemic. But yeah, I've been teaching all the way up to then. So.
I just saw a note from Jason Fellman saying he learned a lot from Merrill, the hammer of the gods. He said like raising your seat, which was something that I need some help with. But Cheryl calls you her own professor, or our own professor. So, Andrew, you had a handful of things that you thought would be a great subject to sort of address to the group. You want to come up with a couple of those?
Sure. Since we touched on it a little bit already, actually. Just a quick question. For what I've noticed is everyone seemed to mention in their bios that there was a period, or a lot of us anyway, where you stopped or you weren't as active. Has everyone here had one of those periods? And what did you find when you came back to it?
I'll answer that. This is the longest I've gone without playing in a long time. Yeah, I can't think of the last time that it was 5 months since I sat down behind a drum set since high school, but that's it. And I'm going absolutely insane. This is how I stay from going crazy. So
right after college, I had a band that then folded, and I was living in a duplex, so I had no practice space and no band. And my drums lived in a closet, and I would get them out every 6 months, and the neighbors would complain, and I'd put them back again. And then I joined a band that we did everything backwards. We did all the business first, we did the recording first. So I didn't play it was probably a stretch of 2 years. And there was some things I think I gained from that. Like I started to hear subtlety after that. But then a lot of like the speed I had from when I was doing like drum corps and marching band, a lot of that had gone away. So it was a mixed bag, but it was, a glorious return to it when I finally did get to do it.
What drum corps did you do?
This was when I moved to Sacramento, they didn't have marching band there. So I did a marching band for 2 years, and I started to do a drum corps that ultimately folded in Tucson. And it was one of those things where I went out for snare, and I ended up, with a middle bass drum, which I wasn't happy with, but I had never played until my freshman year in high school. I never played tonal bass drums before. So the idea of like being in the middle and just waiting for the run to go, but like that's the thing that you have to do it just in time or the whole thing just sounds wonky. It's weird it's like just having a tom, like one tom to play in a group playing a tom fill. And, it was
Yeah.
interesting. I learned a lot from that.
Yeah, sporadic playing is difficult to do. It's,
Mhm.
you have to know the whole song, but you only have to play your part of the song, and you can't wait for anybody else, or else it's just totally jacked. It's
Right. And there's that whole thing where you're waiting for your part, but you can't mentally be waiting for your part.
No.
You're more just listening to the piece and adding to it with your part. It's
Yeah.
a weird.
It's harder than people think.
Yeah, definitely. So, Meryl, you said you stopped. I think Joe said you stopped. No, it was Keith. You said you stopped, right?
I stopped. I can't remember how many years I totally stopped, but along the way, the short, fat, balding office worker started inviting his friends over. It started at a New Year's here. I started smoke cooking, barbecue, and I decided to do a prime rib for New Year's one year. I invited all my friends over, and we ate dinner, ate a feast, and then we came down and just started making noise. And that actually turned into the Water Buffaloes. And
Nice.
we started off, okay, let's get together every month, and we would come and say, what day can you do it next month? Because Tony told me that Fred and Barney get to go bowling into the lodge meeting because it's on the calendar. So we started putting them on the calendar, and it became every Thursday thing. And actually, they were so gracious with taking, if you showed up, you get to play, was our deal. And I worked with R&D for a Fortune 300, so I would met lots of people would come through town. And in a couple of minutes, we're talking about music. And if you're here Thursday, come over and jam with the Water Buffaloes. I've had people from all over the world come jam with the Water Buffaloes. So I actually played a lot. I mean, regularly. I just only did it for my own purposes. Then I started telling the Water Buffaloes, you guys are better than you think you are. So I wasn't completely cold when I started back at it. Never really all the way quit.
Did you find that when you came back, there was a different focus on your playing? Not just maybe it's hard to kind of get your chops back if they're a little rusty, but did you feel like you listened more or differently?
I definitely do. One of the greatest compliments that I felt like I got in recent history was a band I played with. When I was leaving them, they said, there's drummers and there are musicians that play drums. And dude, that was like, I had an opportunity, I don't know, somewhere along those, when I wasn't playing, but I was playing, I met somebody, and he blew my mind open from hard rock, heavy metal Keith. And just like everything became, I liked it, just vocal layers and so listening and playing with people, my chops are nowhere near where they used to be, but I'm a way better musician. Way better. Listening is very important.
That person
I
that you
discovered
saw,
in.
Sorry, go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna ask who that person was. Was it a local person or a national person that you saw? Or
It was a local guy, but rest in peace. And
Okay.
He was a man named Terry Sparks, and I got pulled in to do one gig with him. It was the AA state convention or something like that we got hired to play,
okay,
and he just really opened my mind in his own way. He would do a one-man band thing. He was real famous around town on the west side
okay.
doing, he had a laptop, and he could play and sing, and this was probably 25 years ago.
Okay. Sorry, Andrew, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I discovered it probably didn't hurt that I sort of rediscovered Huey Lewis in the news, but I discovered in that time my appreciation for subtlety, and that the drummer for Huey Lewis does like these fills that are like they're only like 3 notes or whatever. They're not complicated, but where they are, it just struck me in that time period that like it hits so hard. You know what I mean? It's so effective and so moving, and it's just like a triplet or some, you know, like a quarter note triplet, like really slow, uncomplicated thing. But there's in that subtlety, you start to discover, maybe it's partially an age thing too, but you discover the mile of depth there is in subtlety,
Right.
which, you know, when you're in your 20s and you're into metal and you're into like odd time and playing fast, like that never really applies. But I think when you have to stop and you're just a listener
Sure.
to music and to drums, it changes your approach, and when you get back to it, I found it was different.
That you know, you had talked about your drum corps stuff. Cheryl Bland was asking if it was the Sacramento Freelancers that you were playing with. Is that them?
Me?
Yeah.
No. I lived for first couple years in high school. I lived in Arizona.
Oh, Tucson.
So
That's
it
right. You
was-
said that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was in Arizona that I did that. When I moved to Sacramento, I was in the high school that had the top jazz band in the country, and my teacher literally said, "It is hard enough to get kids to play the right notes sitting down, let alone having them walk around." So he didn't believe in it, and we didn't do it. So I really missed that my last couple of years of high school.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Carol just reminded me with her comment, one of the things that she hears me say that I learned about was dynamics, right?
Mhm.
And because coming from a hard, I mean, you're just hitting everything as hard and as fast as you can, which has its place. I'm not going to say, but what I go to learn was that if I just punch you in the nose all night, eventually you just kind of got a sore nose. But if I go like this, and then I punch you in the nose, I got your attention now. So dynamics are just like the amazing thing, right, Andrew?
Right.
It's like, whoa.
You know,
Don't ask me. I'm not good at that.
punching
My
or
whole career is just getting things on LinkedIn.
well, you know, part of that too are the gigs that you've been asked to do. But I know that when you were doing gigs as, you know, younger with your parents, there was a lot more of a dynamic element.
Oh, and I'm joking. I mean,
Yeah,
of course I know how to do it, but it does make a big difference when you can bring the band down.
For sure.
And,
You know, Michael Jarmer is nodding his head, and he is such a master of that. A really tasty player. I don't get to watch you play drums enough, Michael. You know, but
You should come over to the house sometime.
yeah. Well, you know, I get the
I'll
masks.
go over.
I was thinking about a thing sort of in Andrew's talking about his experience when I was in high school. It was when I started playing drums seriously, and my first serious experience playing music was with a sort of a new wave prog rock band, and it was a hugely influential moment for me. But I know that when I was playing with that band, it was all about, you know, how complicated can I make it, how much can I play,
how much can I blur where the bar line is?
right? And then we started Here Comes Everybody, and it was odd because we were two drummers forming a band, and for the first 3 or 4 years, I was singing out front, Renee's playing keyboards, and we had a drum machine.
Oh,
We had
Wow.
a drum machine.
two
doing
drummers in the band, but no real
me it
drummer.
was a
no
Lone
drums,
drum.
right? And so then finally, a few years later, we started finding other drummers because I wanted to do the front man thing.
Interesting.
And so, you know, it was probably like 1997. It was like, I'm going to play the drums again and sing lead. And so that sort of transformed my approach to the drum kit, because I couldn't do that fancy shit and sing songs
Yeah.
and remember words. So,
Right.
you know, I had to sort of, when I started singing lead vocal behind the kit, it forced me to sort of simplify and to worry about the groove
Sure.
so that I could sing the damn song.
You also accidentally learn not to do. You accidentally learn that lesson that you shouldn't do fills while the singer is singing,
Mm.
because when you're singing, it's much harder to do fills.
Accidentally. Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't a problem when I was doing both jobs. I knew that I couldn't do the fill.
Sure.
That's what I mean.
Singer.
You sort of
I'd
accidentally
piss
learn
off
the
the
value of
singer.
that.
You fire yourself.
Fire
know,
myself.
Uh,
Well, that's a good transition for the other thing that I wanted to ask, because I know many of us play other instruments at various levels, and I learned when I picked up guitar to the level that I can do it. I learned a bit about communication with other guitarists, and I could look and say, well, that doesn't sound right because you're not playing the right chord there. But then when I was fronting a band for a while, it was so many lessons that I learned on the role of a drummer and the power that you have as a drummer. Like Jason Fellman always says, like, the drummer's the only one in the band that when you stop, the song is over.
Oh yeah.
And there's some, I learned, like, you're also the keeper of the energy. Like, no matter how much a singer bounces around, if the drums feel tired, the band sounds tired.
right.
Just so many lessons I learned like that. And also when a singer's trying to make eye contact with the drummer and there's like no one,
Right.
they're not paying attention or they're internal. I also learned, and then I would see myself play when I'm drumming, and I'm kind of doing this, with the band, because you're just always kind of
It's
looking
the
for
reason
what's
we
going
sit
on.
on the throne, right? We're the boss. We're the boss. It's usually where the arrangement one. We have to know
Yes.
the arrangements too.
Don't let the fact that we're in the back in the dark fool you. We're in
Right.
control.
No, we're the boss. We're the second conductor.
So my question was, like, I don't know when everyone took up the other instruments. It was before or after drumming, but how did learning another instrument inform your drum? Sort of take the circle and inform your drumming.
Merrill, why don't you talk about how the ukulele has affected your drumming connection? Because you were playing this morning, right? Didn't you have?
I played like right before I came on here.
Yeah.
That's right. I played a German song and a French song and a Chinese song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So-
do you find that your playing is different on set now after having done some involvement with ukulele?
Oh yeah, you have to like play as quietly as you possibly can. Yeah, so your sticks are about that far off the head,
Right.
So yeah, so
Good thing you work.
I support where I can. So as far as that goes, so
tap
although-
strokes.
yeah. So what Kevin's referring to, my wife is a leader of a ukulele group in Tigard or Tualatin, and so she likes to have a drummer back her up, so everyone is in time. Yeah, I'm a human metronome.
There you
That's
go.
it. There we go.
But I'm glad you're getting used for something. The fact that the Jarmers had no drummer for many years it blows my mind that it had a drum machine. But
I always felt like a closet drummer, because I got my degree in drumming up at Lewis and Clark, and I was very serious about it and percussion and the whole thing. But when it came to playing in the band with him, there was no tonal content, so I had to create that. And I always played piano, and for your music degree, you have to take piano proficiency. It's required. Doesn't matter what instrument you take, you have to have your piano proficiency. And at that time, I was just starting to write songs. But then when I figured out what it was I was doing, I was like, oh, theory, came into play. But then I just kind of became known as the keyboardist. But when I went back and drummed for the band for a while there, our drummer Sean Moultrie, he went back to school at Berkeley School. He wanted to go get his music degree, and we couldn't stand being really snobby drummers, like to actually audition drummers.
Yeah.
And so I was like, fine, René, you play. And inevitably, it was I don't know, going from piano to drums and all of that. You do listen a little differently, and I think more orchestrally and how I'm going to fit in, because I don't want to just like smackety smack over everything, you really need to find the groove, and you need to play appropriately for whatever.
I was actually going to ask if you
song.
play drums on piano when you play piano.
Well, sometimes I felt like I was doing that because my piano parts were really crazy. They're just really rhythmic,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was difficult to have anybody sub for me. It was
Yeah.
it was almost impossible that one time. I asked Blake to sub for me once when I went to London for a few months, and here comes everybody, and he's more of a pad guy and more of a just a different kind of player, and he did it. He was the only person I could like trust to do it, but it wasn't easy for him. I don't think because I was like so busy and rhythmic.
Yeah.
So thank you, Blake.
While we're on
What
this
about-
conversation about other instruments, I don't know. I may be the only guy, but I just play the drums.
That's me too.
Yeah, yeah, and I can carry a tune.
You write lyrics. I can't do that.
Yeah, but you said you were singing for a while too, and I learned a lot from that as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, he is the lead singer for the band.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
I think that counts as a
that-
different instrument.
that's an instrument.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
You know,
Guitar did help me, I think, be a better drummer, right? If nothing else, I could talk to them a little bit. I kind of understand. I'm just basic, right? But I mean,
The first
I had
time
an
that happened
idea
for
of
me
what
was really exciting.
Huh?
To be able to communicate on that level.
I remember the first time I led the band in a song, calling it out, E minor, D, C. Well, and it was like, whoa, that was like, it was an amazing new power that I
Sure.
had, you know?
speaking of power, here goes Joe.
Power.
Come on, Hulk.
That guy plays everything.
Yep.
Yeah. So what is your Joe? What is your first instrument? Drums?
My my first instrument was guitar,
Really? Okay.
and I was the worst guitar player out of the three of us, so I became the full-time drummer. And so I started playing guitar with my older brother when I was about 10. He would play drums. He got a pawn shop kit and a pawn shop guitar, and we'd be in our little shed, and we'd be banging out Nirvana tunes, right? Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit" was the first song I learned to play. You know, and then
Yeah.
so it was just kind of back and forth, and then the Black Album came out, and my little mind was blown. And my favorite, if there's a favorite part about being able to swap around, is exactly that conversation. Especially when we're talking about like syncopation and tempo and speed and vibe and breaks. I mean, it was only when I started really working with vocalists that I understood pickup notes, right? Because it was like, I mean, like Any Way You Want It, that Journey tune. When you start off, right? It's like, oh, so that's not, just those kind of little dialogues building with that have been really helpful. But then playing live, I've been pretty fortunate to front a couple bands. They let me do a Sepultura tribute where I got to scream into a microphone and sing in Portuguese, and just being a drummer, standing in front of another drummer, is its own kind of energy, and so not getting a chance to feel the motor per se when you're driving the car is its own kind of excitement.
Yeah.
And for me, I've always looked at drums as kind of being not necessarily in a wheelchair, but that Green Day song "Basket Case," where they have him playing in a wheelchair, was very fitting. So anytime I get a chance to run around on stage and do kicks or trip on myself is a super joy. And for me, that is part of the language of interacting with the drummer. It's more than just that eye look, and bless his heart, Kevin from Motor Breath runs around behind the riser, behind the scrims and everything, and jumps up on the platform with me, and we like butt heads while we're playing, and it's like, the chemistry is really powerful when it can kind of be that versatile,
Right.
then it's not like, it's like a blender where it's like chop, mix, puree, start, dust, thrive, jump, dive, where it just adds to the colors of what can happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've playing guitar for a long time, play bass, play keyboard. I just learned singing. I was married to the best singer, a beautiful, amazing singer, who, when she would hear me sing, she would wonder if I was drinking milk and choking.
Oh.
And so she helped me with it. And there's a blessing. I'm almost done. That in drumming, there's a lot of cardio, so there's a lot of diaphragm breathing that happens naturally, and so it helped with my burpy Cookie Monster vocals. But then learning to apply that kind of dynamic, it has helped vocally. So all across the board, I always encourage everybody, if you can pick up anything at all, pick up as much as you can, because it's going to help when you're chatting with everybody, talking about the one, talking about breaks and dynamics. So
Sure.
Yeah, the other thing
Lot of
about
fun.
singing that's helpful is the big part about singing is breath control, right? Where to hold it, how to do it, making sure to breathe, and
Breath control, not birth control, right?
breath control.
Okay.
No,
all
that's
right.
Say
drumming.
breath control.
Sorry.
Always wear a
Sorry.
condom when you're drumming. No, so one of the things that, when you're sitting upright and breathing in a natural manner, when I was young, I didn't do this, and it really helps with your time.
I think it's much easier to drum and sing than it is to play keyboards and sing.
I would
There's
imagine.
so much melodic content and rhythm going on in the fine motor skills, but when you're drumming, I find it a little bit easier, but it's still, it's like multitasking. It's
Sure.
very much a multitask.
I think that some songs are harder than others for sure. If there's a lot of counter playing to what you're singing that isn't in a complimentary way, it can be hard. I've got a couple songs that I have trouble with.
That you have to sing and play.
Yeah. There's like Youth Gone Wild has got some weird skips in it that
Right.
the vocals do not do, and so it can be kind of stuff like that can be hard. I mean, you get used to it, but
Sure.
I grew up doing that with my parents a lot. We used to play covers, and everyone had to take turns singing or doing harmonies, and so there was a lot.
I love harmonies, yeah.
Yeah.
Joe was talking about the different bands that he was in, and I was thinking about playing and singing. Joe has these great videos that he's come up with recently that have been him playing guitar, drums, bass, vocals, everything. He's done all the instrumentation and different takes. I was picturing you with Parabola, with the Tool tribute, singing and playing that stuff would be so challenging. Just like phrasing is all so funky with that. But that's your next challenge, Joe. I'm going to throw it your way in the next video. I want you to sing and play the Tool stuff at the same time.
Oh, Joe just fainted.
Kevin, have you seen? I did Tool's Grammy-winning 15-minute opus Tempest.
I didn't see it, and you play it and sang at the same time.
All of it, buddy.
No, but drumming and singing at the same time.
Oh, you got me. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So that's your next challenge, right? Because
challenge accepted.
Okay, I know. That's all you have to do with Joe. Is just set him free. Really quick, I was going to touch base on the education thing, Renee. I know that one of the things that has really helped in your respect, you've become a Vic Firth educator, right? So can you talk a little bit about what that criteria meant to be a certified member?
Yeah, I mean, it's I always, and by the way, thank you, Vic Firth. I wish he was still around. I always wanted to meet him, but I didn't get a chance to do that. Becoming a Vic Firth educator was really helpful because of the fact that when I teach privately. I have anywhere from 20 to 30 students at a time. Right now it's a little lower because of the
C word.
the pandemic. Yeah. But I also did clinics and everything. And so I would oftentimes go into schools that had nothing, especially certain districts like Portland Public Schools. It's like their music has been defunded worse than the rest of the music programs. So I can get really started on that. But like when I started to go after this, I was, because I still take advanced lessons. I still go up to Lewis and Clark and study with Brett Pascal up there. That dude, he's awesome. He's one of my Jedi masters. So I go up there and just, drop my ego at the door. And he said, you should really get this Vic Firth educator. It's like this is the same thing whether you're a Vic Firth artist or an educator as far as a level they give you. It's just that if you're more in the education than playing in a famous band, they'll award that to you. But I had to ask for reference letters from teachers and people who were influential at the time, educators in schools and people like collegiate professors. And so when I got it, I was very honored to get it. I was sort of humbled, because there's just, I mean, let's face it, there's not very many women who get that, and
Sure.
there's a lot more. So it's nice to have that too. But it when I do stuff now, like clinics, or when I have workshops for every year we do drumline workshops, except for this year. They'll send educational materials and get that stuff out to kids, the posters, the lanyards, the keychains, the educational materials, sticks, mallets, because those are expensive. So like being able to get those out to kids, I mean, my passion is teaching, and I want to create as many drummers as possible, because let's face it, we're so cool. We're like the best tribe ever to belong to. And whereas education in the schools has changed, being able to use that endorsement, or whatever it is, that nice feather in my cap, to get this out to more kids and adults too, it's really important. And so I really appreciate it, because I just use the tools to spread the love of drumming.
That's great. That's great.
So it's been nice to get certain things like that. I also write for Tom Tom magazine, and I've done some blogs for other sites. Not very many of them, but just in general, it's nice to be able to reach as many people as possible.
You bet. I would imagine that this time, for you educators, you teachers right now, in all respects, whether you're teaching music education or anything else, having to shift and adapt and use distance learning to be a new technology to not only communicate the message, but really follow standards and and see a difference in kids' progress. It's got to be tough.
Yeah, the technical stuff is really, it's like, okay, can you put your hands up here? Let me, you're sitting there trying to show them traditional grip, or get your pinky on, you got to keep your buddies on stick, that kind of thing. And it's been exhausting, actually, to teach online, because, you have like little Athena running around, and I love this kid so much, but she's just like, she's a little kid, and that's with my piano students. Some of them are just like, they're crazy. She actually showed me her music teacher Barbie. And this is the music teacher Barbie, and she put it up to the screen, and it had kind of like the blonde hair like mine on top, and it comes with a student, and it comes with like a little music stand. I'm like, all right, you just sit her right on the end of the thing, and we'll get the lesson going. But online, and he's a high school teacher,
right.
So like the whole online thing that they were forced to do in short amount of time, like we all had to shift, right? I don't know if any of you are teaching online, but it was rough. It was like, okay, I got to figure out Zoom. Okay, I got to figure out the settings. Okay, this doesn't work for piano, but it works for drums. Okay, can you do this? And people like, don't use a Chromebook. Those suck, the kind of things like that. So it was definitely a shift, but like having support from people, like back to the Vic first question, and it really was helpful, because I had some materials I could just give them.
You bet.
Drop it off at their house, throw it out the window here.
Socially distant. Nice.
Yeah. I did my recital that way. My drum recitals and my piano recitals, the first time ever online. So thank God I have a 14-year-old in the house that could take all the videos and edit them together and make it
nice. Yeah, Emerson, man, I can't believe he's 14 already. It blows my mind.
He's auditioning for world-class DCI drum lines now.
Wow, incredible. Wow.
He's a beast.
I know you Portlanders, we talked a little bit just before we went live about music stores in town that were these sort of seminal stores that kind of were the hangout spots, like Horseshoe Music, and right now we've got Revival Drum Shop and Rhythm Traders. Were you guys in other areas, did you have a local hang that you would go to and just spend all day in a music store, just getting lost in all the gear and watching players? And
musicals. That's
Andrew?
Trying to unmute, sorry. I had, it wasn't close, but there's a place in Sacramento and Modesto called Skip's Music, which was probably the biggest thing. There's also Drum and Guitar City, that was also really far. But yeah, I would go to Skip's. It was like you'd go upstairs, up these tiny stairs, and that upstairs area was just crammed with drum stuff. And in fact, my favorite splash, which I still use, I bought there, and I had them set up like all the splashes. And I probably took like an hour and a half to choose it, and it it is still how I think a splash should sound.
Which one?
I'm not sure if I should say because
That's all right. Your sponsor may not have that exact same.
It is the Sabian AAX, just a plain Sabian AAX 10.
10-inch, all right.
Yeah, you know, it to me reacts and sounds like a splash. But I don't think I would have known that had they not been patient enough with me to set them all up and let me compare, you know, 3 or 4 at a time.
Do you guys all have your favorite splash cymbal? Joe, do you have a splash cymbal?
My Sabian 10.
Okay.
You know,
We are splashless.
Well,
looking at it.
oh, you're splash free.
Splashless.
No
How do you
splashes
do
in the
that?
Jarmer house. All right.
Splash-free.
Merrill's got a suite of splashes, a gaggle of them.
Gaggle.
I like them all. It's
Yeah,
a family. You know, how can you pick your favorite in the family? So
But I
Yeah,
know,
I see people say that, but I know parents have favorites.
yeah, they do.
You're just not allowed to talk about it.
tens are awesome. I tens and 8s. That's a sweet spot. But I do have a 6, and it's and I actually my 12 is really nice.
Really?
I don't know why.
What-
We're just probably
what is
we're.
it?
I'm just telling you right now. There's probably the people that are watching this are dropping like flies when we're starting to talk here. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You know
Nope.
what? This is like when I would sing for a band and suddenly there's 2 drummers in the room and we start talking about snares and stuff, and you'd see the guitar players like, "Oh, stop," and I'd have to stop them and say, "Do you know how many conversations about like power tubes and preamps I've had to sit through? Like, you will sit here and listen to what we have to."
Keith Parkhurst, I know you were going to talk about your the Sabian Paragon splash, weren't you?
I don't have well, I do have a splash, but I rarely use it.
Okay.
I actually kind of got afraid of splashes when they started using them on, you know, a lot in the 70s, and they reminded me of the modern day cowbell at that time. And you know, just because you got that doesn't mean you should hit it.
Yeah.
I think, like a cowbell, it goes in the right places.
Sure.
But if it's in front of us, we might want to hit it too often.
Right. Yeah.
I may revisit that though because of my esteemed colleagues' opinions on splashes. Maybe I
There you
just
go.
haven't found the right one.
Well, you just got to play some 90s music, man, and then you got to get like 6 splashes and line them all up and make melodies.
Stuart Copeland, baby. Stuart Copeland was he was the splash king.
Carter.
I was totally
Carter
going to
Beaufort.
marry him.
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
such a crush on him when I was.
You just had a
12.
crush on his cymbals. I know.
I had a crush on him. I was like, I know that if I learn the entire Outlandos D'Amour album, he'll want to marry me. So
Oh.
I
dodged a
learned the
bullet.
entire
It's your
album.
anniversary. Come on.
You know, we all love Stuart Copeland, but I think you dodged a bullet with that one. I think you've got a much more pleasant
Yeah, I just married a
hubby.
different drummer. Yeah.
Yeah. And who
We
was that?
haven't- You were going to say something about a splash.
No, I wanted to talk about my garbage can lid.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
In
You
the,
can trash-
80s, in the 80s, I had a garbage can lid.
Of course
Literally.
you did.
That was
Did you
for
put anything on it to sizzle it, or was it just a bare garbage pan?
Nah,
Or
it's just a
garbage can lid?
bare lid.
Cool.
We
You
drilled
mounted it.
we drilled a hole, mounted
I
it
love
on a stand. It
Nice.
made
I
a really
love it.
great noise.
Yeah.
In cars. Da-da, da-da.
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
No.
I have a
No.
new one. It's
I-
not real.
Yeah, we do have one. We haven't set it up though.
Waste
Okay.
management took his away. So
Yeah, you have to get the
Plastic
metal
ones don't
ones,
sound the
people.
same.
Anybody listening, get the
Yeah,
metal ones,
not
not
rubber-
the plastic.
Rubber lid. No.
yeah. Right. And make sure that it's hand hammered. If you can get a hand hammered trash
know.
can lid, that's the
There you go.
Oh, these poor guests.
Actually, have you seen the ones that I think it's LP makes this little like snare thing, and it's a trash can lid with a drum head on top and like what do you call it? Ball bearings in it.
I've
And
not
so
seen.
when you, it's really cool. They've got a whole line of these like sort of trashy instruments like that,
They're
and
like, we
but
got
that
this
one's
stuff left over. Let's sell it.
yeah. Let's let's find a way to take $20 worth of stuff and sell it for $200.
Right. They're probably
But they're really cool. It's like actually the trash can lid still has the handle on it. You put it in a snare basket. It's kind of neat.
I was going to ask you guys about mentors. Growing up, you know, I talked about the music stores and hanging out with those places. I know that, you know, in those places, if you took lessons or if you had sort of a person that you looked up to in your area that was kind of the starter for you getting you excited about drums. How about you, Merrill?
Actually, I was going to kind of go back on your other question, your last question you posed. This will kind of go into this
Okay.
other one, like drum stores. You
Yeah.
remember that? Yeah. I don't know if and I wanted to ask Renee and Michael if they remember the Don Worth drum shop.
Oh yeah,
And,
yeah.
the 17th in Tacoma. Yeah.
Senior. He was one of my teachers.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started taking drum lessons there at 13 years old.
Wow.
And
From
it was a
senior?
small time. No, from it wasn't even from junior. It was, they had another drummer there. His name was Andy. I can't remember his last name. I actually took lessons from both senior and junior.
Okay.
But that was the only music shop that that I frequented because I had a lesson there every Saturday morning.
Okay.
And I sometimes even rode my bike from 96th and Herald to 17th and Tacoma.
You wouldn't do that now.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time there with Don Senior.
Oh, he was a lovely man. He was awesome. So, but yeah, like as far as like listening to Don Jr. in the other room while I'm working on what, like learning, a snare solo out of the that Harkle book, whatever. I think that you remember which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was stunning to hear Don play, and he was probably like a junior and senior in high school at the time, so that was kind of a huge influence as far as like, how young he was and how gifted he was at the time, and he still is now. He's like amazing player. He's playing all around, and he does a lot. He's doing like I'm friends with him on Facebook, and he does that 7 o'clock playing for the essential workers. Is very kind of active politically.
He ever showed you his hand? Like
what's that?
This web on his hand is gone.
Oh, I know.
Playing.
Yeah,
he is an avid trad player, and he will go to the mat saying that's the best way to do it.
Wow.
So, yeah, he's so anyway.
Do we have any traditional players in this crew? Okay, just Renee.
I have to teach it. I have to.
Right.
Merrill's better at it than
When I teach, I'm always playing traditional grip. Well, when I'm teaching rudiments, I really don't. I feel most comfortable playing traditional grip when I'm playing rudiments on a pad.
Do you teach the students to play in traditional?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that?
Do you actually teach the students to play traditional?
Oh, if they want to. It's like I feel like it's the easiest way is match grip.
Yeah.
There's such a kind of like a strength and technique learning curve for the left hand for
Right.
traditional grip, and you have it's like I've had students really want to do it. They look at it and they've heard it, they've heard of it. It's almost like some sort of mystery thing to them
Right.
nowadays, right? So, but I teach it when they want to, and I kind of tell them like how I use it. I always kind of go in between both. It's like when I played in a band called Nicky Croon and Swingin' Dicks, and
Right.
it was a swing band, and I played all traditional grip all through that. It was a horn band, playing crooner music, and I never played match grip during that whole time.
I was taught traditional grip when I
Yeah, me too.
like in 5th grade when they came around to the schools and said, what do you want to play in band? Because they don't even ask in 5th grade anymore, but that you got in elementary music, and I was taught traditional grip, and then I was allowed to go match, and then I had to come back to teach traditional grip for drumline, because you would never want to play traditional grip in the back of the band room. That's orchestral. So
Right.
you never want to do that. But yeah, it doesn't feel good for a lot of people.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it's because it hurts. You really have to build that web that you're talking about. But yeah, I actually went back to Don and took a lesson with him. It's just because I really, when I started teaching in 2008, I wanted to get all my ducks in a row, and I went to him to like, okay, I wanted to get all the finer points that I might have lost over the years, so.
That does go away too if you don't keep up with that. I noticed that my chops and real any finesse playing is really gone in that respect, and wanting to take lessons again. Andrew Greene, and I were talking last night about Todd Zuckerman's program, that he has his online program, that he has a really great set of sort of sections that he teaches, and it's self-paced, right? So
and it's a 26 course, basically 6 months if you do it weekly.
Right.
And it starts off really basic, and and then that's a humbling thing, because you go, oh, I can't do this that fast,
I'm wondering, because he's so prominently traditional grip, whenever you see him play it. So does that course primarily focus on trad grip, or does he actually say, look, you can apply these either way?
No, he'll go back and forth. I mean, I've seen him play a lot, and he'll switch just in the course of playing, which is probably, when you think about it, the better way to do it, to take advantage of both aspects. But no, it's more about because I guess the general theory of how to grip a stick is the same whether it's the left hand or the right hand. And I've seen Wackel talk about this too, where it's still where the control is. It's still to some degree the same fingers and the same similar fulcrum.
Sure.
But no, he doesn't really talk about that. He talks about it a little bit in the beginning, but he never advocates for one or the other. It's more about the patterns and choices and stuff like that. Yeah, permutations.
His outtake videos are the best, because whenever he shows that he's very, he's very
he seems
humble.
so serious.
Yeah,
right?
but you'll see his sticks flying out of his hands, and typically it's trying to do a crazy fill using his trad grip, and some like, well, that's another excuse not to use it. But Merrill, I'm glad that he touched on Don Worth. Joe, were there some mentors in your early formative days that you looked up to at the drum shops, or student, or even if it was another bandmate that kind of inspired you? You're muted, sorry.
There we go.
There you go.
Thanks, fellas. And Renee. Yes, let's see if I can tie this one down real fast. It was about a 2-hour drive to any sort of music store in my hometown, and I would go and try to elicit as much information from him as possible. And the punchline of it is basically, I've got this fantastic Peruvian guy working at Welch Music saying, you can't run an entire band out of a 4-ohm guitar cab. Let me teach you, right? And so my true mentor when I was 15 years old, his name's Michael Clare. Mike, if you're out there, I hope you see this. I love you and thank you for everything you've done for me. He was a sideman at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, and worked lived up in my hometown. And I was working at a gas station, and I had my little demo CD, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a musician one day. And a co-worker was like, that guy's a professional musician and a professional wrestler. He used to wrestle in the WWF. So a big guy who could play guitar and sing like David Gilmour. And so he used to play with Hal Ketchum and tons, CJ Chenier, lots of Zydeco stuff. Very, very, very wonderful. So I go out there and I give him a CD, sir, please, I heard you play music, and he calls me up a week later and he's like, hey kid, I can't get your disc out of my CD player. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It was maybe it was the label of the print. And he's like, no. I mean, I've been listening to it. You've actually got some chops. You want to come in and chat? And so he hired me at 15 years old. And the biggest thing, and I still say this once a week, the lesson he instilled with me is, if you can play to a metronome, you can always find work. And I swallowed my pride and fought that cat for a couple hours. summer year, and so the biggest lesson I was able to gain out of that was his guidance and patience. And he brought me into a studio, showed me how to mic up a kit, showed me, rooms, lessons, conversations, chats, the interactions, like how to interact with a musician on stage, how to interact with a musician in the studio, how to understand constructive feedback from a producer, how to shut your mouth, when to drink, when not to drink, like as much as he could, because at 15 years old he had played with enough people, and he's like, if there's anything I can pay forward, I can pay forward some good habits, and when you pick up your own bad habits, just try to make these prevail. And for that, I appreciate him very much.
Man, I love that. Michael, do you want to touch on maybe a mentor? I know one thing I love about you and your online presence is that of late you've been touting inspirational records to you. You've been posting records that meant something, and I knew a lot about your fanaticism for Zappa and I think Talking Heads and some other intellectual music. So were those formative mentors to you as well, or did you have some locals that?
Well, locally, I think Renee and I shared one.
Yeah.
And that would be Sam Henry.
Yes.
Oh wow, nice.
We both, when we were high schoolers, took lessons from Sam.
Really?
Our moms knew his mom.
And he was playing in the Wipers,
right?
And then in the Rats with Fred and Tootie Cole. And he's just a legendary local drummer. In fact, Sam Henry, he went to high school at the school where we went to high school. So when we came in, he had already been out, a number of years. And we sort of, her parents knew his parents. And so, but the first live rock shows that we saw locally were Sam Henry gigs.
At the Syringicon, yeah.
Syringicon. No, I think I don't think we saw him at the Satyricon.
Oh, I saw
there
him
was
at the
there was
Satyricon.
another place. Anyway, I don't know.
That's the only place I ever saw Sam play. Was
Talking
Sam
about stuff that's not around anymore.
Sam Henry was huge for both of us, I think.
Well, what people don't know about Sam is they go, wow, he's a punk legend. He was just into the Oregon Music Hall of Fame, for his work with Rats and all that. But what they don't know about Sam is that he's an incredible rudimental drummer.
Wow.
Like, he did the Scottish fife drum stuff. And so he was like forceful, like, traditional player.
And he could play jazz like nobody's business.
Like
wow.
Mount Hood Community College Jazz Band, and he helped me with my jazz chops, early on in the game, and he was just incredible. I'm still in touch with him once in a while. And he was also, a lot of people don't know this, and I'm sure he'd be okay with me mentioning it, because if you know Sam, he's legally blind. And so, like, being able to study with someone who's kind of a local legend that had all this experience but could barely see just was really empowering. I'm just like, well, if he can do it, and and he was just an amazing, positive. He told me young, like when I first started, I was really young. I was like 12 or 13, starting to take lessons with him. And he said, "You should be out playing with people." And I'm like, really? He was really good at giving the confidence. He was amazing. Yeah,
and that's as big a teacher as any lesson, actually doing gigs and getting that feedback too.
Yeah, but he was just so positive, and his chops were just amazing. They still are. He's a great player, and a lot of people just don't know about his jazz chops because they know him for being Mr. Punk.
That's totally I'm guilty of that for sure. And I love watching him play because he's bombastic. He's the perfect metal or perfect punk rock drummer.
He's got all that rudimental training underneath all of that.
Yeah.
So that's a
makes
great
it easier,
reason
right?
for everybody. You got to do that, I think, because I think it just makes sure this happen in the right way. It helps you control what you're doing.
I need to get Sam on a drummers collective.
I don't know if you can hear it.
Listen, can you hear it?
Emerson's drumming again.
Emerson,
nice.
He's doing his thing.
He's crazy.
Nice. Hey, Keith, how about you early on?
What inspired me was a person that I never actually saw play other than tap around on my own set. It was my dad.
Oh.
And my dad was a drummer. And the folklore is that he had loaned his drum set out to a friend and never got it back. And, then he started having his family, right? So he didn't pursue it. Um, but I'll tell you, I had drums and drumsticks and just stuff around. There was because my dad was involved in the drum and bugle corps, and actually Cheryl's dad and my dad both marched in the Leatherneck Senior Drum and Bugle Corps here in Portland, which was a beer drinking game for them more than anything probably. But he went on to run the Portland Vancouver Hawks that were here, and then I marched for a couple years when the Hawks and the Lancers became the 3rd Regiment, and so I had I had real drummers teaching me there.
Yeah.
Most of the time in band class, right, it was a trumpet player. I in fact got a B in my sophomore year because I refused to use traditional grip.
Oh, yeah.
Swing, 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 and then
Right.
the trumpet player did not like that I would not do that. So sure, I got featured at the show, but I got a B.
Oh, man.
One thing that my dad also did for me, stupid me, when I was 15 and fully involved in my 3-piece metal band that played in his basement 5 days a week, he actually hooked me up with lessons with Mel Brown.
Mm.
And I took Mel Brown lessons for a few months, never really put it in. I didn't wear the platform shoe, and I don't know, it wasn't for me a regret of my life. My dad also took us, Buddy Rich played it was like Sunset or Aloha High School when I was a teenager in the 70s, and my dad took me to that. So my dad was really he's really why I played.
You just reminded me, I think the reason that I had mentioned Cheryl, your bride, as a drummer was because I remember her early days. And René, you'll appreciate this because I think we shared this conversation that the first drum instructor that Cheryl had disallowed her to join band because drums weren't allowed for young girls. Mm-hmm. And that instructor ended up coaching my son for a very short period of time. It was one of those things that really dissuaded him from wanting to play, and so
got hit on hit him. She would have to hold the cymbals, and he hit her on the knuckles with his.
Oh man, you get so fired now for that.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Those are, at that age too. I mean, it's just, they could really make or break anybody's spirit to wanting to play music. And I guess I'm grateful, that we all had those inspiring people in our lives that ended up encouraging us, even if they weren't drummers, to want to go after this thing for the passion and the fulfillment. Before we wrapped, I think it'd be kind of neat to just talk a little bit about. Andrew, I know that you had some of the questions here. I'm going to table my question for a second. You had something you wanted to ask.
I had 2 things I wanted to talk about. One is a much longer subject, but I'll just make a note. I think it's noteworthy to say that whether teaching or we didn't even mention one of the fantastic things Keith does is just involving in the healing power of music. Keith works with I know you work with stroke victims, right? Is it teaching drums or music in general?
Play music. It's really
playing music.
It's community music, and
it's performance for them.
Powerful,
right? So this is a therapeutic music performance you do for them.
And I just wanted to we all, I think, probably have experience either personally or professionally with the healing or therapeutic power that has, drums or music in general. I think drums in particular because there's something primal about just putting sticks in your hand and beating something. But it's gotten me through some times, some hard times. It's got healing powers. If
anybody else have that therapy?
Anyone have experience with that? Yeah.
Yeah, Joe.
Oh, go Joe, go Joe.
You're muted though.
Okay,
Thanks,
good.
buddy.
You guys didn't hear me swear. Good. It's just trying to set the room that way you guys don't hear me go. Amen. So much of this stuff. Yeah, no. Personally, for me, I married a beautiful music therapist who would do guided meditations, and I'd come home from a show completely just razzled or frazzled. I mean, I don't know about you guys or whatever, but the audience response is like, "Hey, that was a great show," and you're just sitting there kicking yourself over the 6 things that you messed up, or the 3 things they messed up, or whatever, and you're just like, "Ah, ah, ah, ah," right? And so the healing power of music, she'd lay me down, turn on some music, touch my forehead, and be like, listen to the soothing sounds, and just let it go. And I'm a huge proponent and advocate of self-development. So I'm not shy about going to therapy and everything that I do to try to make myself a little more of a socialized person. And the biggest things in there is, they're like, keep playing music. There's so much of the common ground of the resonance, even the healing frequencies. We can have conversations about 440 versus 432, and just all of the aspects of the chakras and what can be released in any of it. And yeah, music heals. And like Andrew was saying, even from a primitive point of view, and you go in there and you can like treat it like a workout room, or you can hold it like your baby, and it's just the kinesthetics, like the kinesthesiology of the touch and the vibration is so incredible. And they've actually been looking at healing through like sound waves for things. I don't know if you guys. So I'm a huge fan of music as a therapy and music as a healing tool. So thanks.
Wow.
One of the things that I think that it does, at least for me, is that you can't play music correctly and be thinking about what you did or what's coming up. You're in that moment as it passes. And Michael, I know you some of your writing, when I was doing some research, you're very big into the mindfulness thing, and I think that is very. I think that's a microcosm of that, where you're just in each moment as it passes, and that's, I think, what's so relieving about it. If you're stressed or whatever, is it kind of pulls you out of yourself a bit, and you're just stuck in the moment.
I call it between the downbeat and the bow. It's just like an amazing place where you're living in the moment.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
think music can kind of radiate outwards too. I mean, it's physically what's happening with your mind body connection with the instrument, but it's also what you're imparting to other people. And for me, music is a way of life. It's a way of our life together as being in band, and all these years staying married. And well, it's not easy. I mean, 34 years is a long time, but
Yeah.
music is always something we've come back to. But also for me, I don't know, but I don't share this a lot. I'm not one of those people out oversharing on Facebook about my health, but I am a breast cancer survivor. And one of the things that has helped me kind of get through it is I had to have surgery, and then I had to go play a show with Nicole Campbell. And it's like, well, I got to get better for this,
Yeah.
So I got to get better. I got to get back out there.
Right.
So it does, for me, it's always like a something to reach for, to come back to. So it's more of a, not just a physical thing, but more of an emotional thing for people.
Oh yeah.
And I know that the kids in my drum line, it's when you have a band or a group that you're with, and or you have a group of students that all share a common goal. I mean, they're friends for life.
Yeah.
And it changes them in the biggest way.
There's a familial
Youth development.
intimacy almost with that sort of relationship.
It's their family. I mean, I still hear from them, and even if it was a kid that was not that great, later on when I see them, they still come up to me and say, "This is the most important thing I've ever done." It's health and wellness. It's not just. There's more to it than that people don't realize.
But the familial thing, it's funny. I look around the Zoom chat here and think about how you've all been like that to me. That really, I could feel like I consider each and every one of you part of my family, which is, it's a special thing. I mean, and this is, I don't mean for this to be a super love fest, but, and I could, sort of spell out each one of those things, but I think about, Merrill Hale, and there is, Merrill and I have been friends longer than I've been known anybody here in Portland. We met right when I moved here in '94 and have been best buddies ever since. And that guy got me through so many incredibly tough times, and didn't run away screaming after seeing all those things too. But I think about some of the real unique things about Merrill, and that was going to lead me to my question about when I asked about your influences and your mentors, if it's possible to come up with a favorite drummer, Merrill had one of the most unique and interesting ones. And so so if you guys can think about it for a second, if you have one that you can name, but Merrill, you want to share your favorite drummer?
Come on, it's Ricky Rocket. We know it.
No, this is good. You're muted. This may not be an overlap. Merrill may be the only one that picks this one.
My favorite drummer.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite drummer, I hope this is this guy you're talking about, is a guy named Barrymore Barlow. Is that the guy?
That's the guy.
That's the guy. Anyway, so I'm a gargantuan Jethro Tull fan, and all their work throughout the 70s was fueled by Barrymore Barlow, who is like, anyways, his style of drumming, I kind of like feel like I'm like a microcosm of Peart and Barrymore Barlow, and yeah, I'm a super fanatic about that guy, and then no one really knows about that guy, but his writing and his drum parts for all those songs that I just get goosebumps still listening to this day. He's the man, and he's a very odd guy, because like he's never really done much after Tull. He played with Yngwie Malmsteen on Rising Force, and he played on a couple tracks on Robert Plant's Principal Moments album.
Oh, really? Okay.
But he really hasn't really done much. He's kind of like, he's just kind of faded away, But his writing and his style of kind of quirky drumming has just really entered into my style. So.
You mentioned the goosebumps, and as you guys are thinking about your drummers, that's the thing. I was wondering if there's any drummer out there that actually makes you cry or just feel when you listen to that drummer and you just think how changed and moved you are by that player. So Andrew, do you have one in mind?
Well, so the answer is twofold. My favorite drummer is Rod Morgenstein from Winger, from Dixie Dregs. There's something about that sort of mixture of doing weird stuff in pop that feels straight. Neil Peart was actually really good at this, where you take something, you make it sound simple, and then you as a drummer, you sit down and try and play it, and your mind is blown. But you're talking about tearing up. There was I went to a clinic at Rhythm Traders it was a goof. I didn't plan to do it. It just sort of happened, and I saw and I am blanking on his name. I had it just a second ago. Stanton Moore.
Oh yeah.
From is it Galaxy? I think it is.
Galactic.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been to a drum clinic in years and years and years, and I was sort of connecting with maybe the emotional part of being a drummer and learning, and I'm watching him do this stuff, and he's sort of breaking down a lot of stuff about some of the New Orleans
swamp funk,
how that came to be, the sort of like one place in the world smashing of like 6 or 7 cultures that that came from, and he's talking about it, and I don't know what happened, but I just started, I'm in public and I'm starting to tear up.
That's cool.
I'm, like, wondering what's going on.
Yeah, I love
really
it.
Eye-opening.
That's great.
Love Rod Morgenstein. I had his VHS tape. I got it for Christmas when I was probably 17, 18.
His instructional tape?
Putting it all together. Remember that? Oh gosh. Oh my God. It was just it was some of the best ghost stroke lessons I've ever had was from that video.
And he's got this whole other, I have a book of his, and it's warm-ups. And he's like, these aren't fills that you're ever going to play. They're just weird drum set specific patterns that are hard.
Yeah.
It's sort of like weighting up your bat before you go to bat kind of a thing. It's like they don't even sound good. You know, where you're doing fills up the kit from like snare tom, you know, like these weird motions. And yeah, the guy's nuts. He's left-handed, so it screws with my head to watch him play.
Yeah. He actually, you know, we gigged with him a couple years ago in the Dominican Republic with the 80s in the sand thing. And, you know, Kip Winger and Reb Beach are all hanging out every night to, you know, have dinner and hang out, bars, drink, whatever. But you never saw Rod anywhere except there was a room next to the venue, kind of by the pool, where you could hear him on the pad chopping out about 3 hours before the gig. And I don't think he stopped. I think he warmed up like 3 hours before. And it may have been that he just didn't want to be around the party scene, you know, the crazy stuff by the pool or whatever. But, you know, it's funny because their set was like a 45-minute rock set, and he didn't throw out all the chops on the gig. He did his parts, and they're awesome and really interesting parts. But I just thought how just dedicated to his craft that he is. And if I remember right, he was a Joe Morello student, and I remember just he got all those hands from Joe. You know, I could be wrong, but it seems like I remember that. But anyway, how about
my second favorite thing about him is that he's always got the biggest smile and he's laughing.
Yeah.
And so there's that whole thing about exuding joy. That is maybe
So like
secondarily.
when he starts to do like a fill, the look in his eyes, he knows what's coming up.
Yeah.
He looks almost possessed, but then he starts then he starts smiling.
He's as excited about it as we are. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, love him. Love Rod.
Keith Parkhurst, what do you say?
Man, you know what? Somebody told me once. They said, you know, I don't like saying one cat's better than another.
Yeah, I know.
His name was Kevin. Yeah, but anyway,
yeah. I'm not saying
course,
better.
I don't.
Something that makes
I really dug. I'm a single stroke guy a lot. I was a tom player and you know, tri-toms in drum corps, and we didn't do doubles back then. So, you know, guys like Keith Emerson and Keith Moon and Carl Palmer were really big deal to me. But I have to say, the very first rock concert I ever went to was Rush. And so I watched Neil Peart on his first tour here, and there was, you know, the Fly By Night and Crest of Steel were both being supported. And that actually really probably changed a lot for me. You know, I mean, I went away with this in my, I got to do that. I started borrowing the bass drum and the pedal from the high school for the weekends, right? It's like,
that's cool. Yeah, you can't go wrong there. Like, rest in peace, Neil, for sure.
Yeah.
Joe, you have a drummer in mind? After you unmute yourself. There he is.
I can't tell you how many conversations and meetings I've been on where I've never had to speak a word. So, thanks.
This is about getting out of your shell, everyone.
Thanks for the grace. They keep me behind a cage for a reason.
Right.
Thank you, Keith, for clarifying. This isn't about the best drummer; it's about our personal favorite drummer. And when I say that, you know, the boos and the hymns and the haws and the tomatoes flow when I speak of my hero Lars Ulrich from Metallica. And when I say that, it comes at a seminal time in my life, 10 years old, hearing the Black Album, relating to the music and the songs, and then him being the drummer. And then they released like a year and a half DVD, video, VHS that I wore out over the summer for my summer job, and I treated that 2-hour concert like college. I would watch it every day, hours at a time, from every angle, watch every movement, you know, cymbal heights, stick lengths, grips, height of the floor toms, staging, you know, how they interacted with each other, and would literally goosebumpy, would mimic that stuff sitting on my couch. And so to step into a version of something like that was an honor in itself. But to second that, I cried one time watching a drummer live, and his name is Flo Monnier. He's from a French Canadian band called Cryptopsy. They're extremely death metal and burpy growly vocals and all this. And I bought his instructional DVD, which was Feet Technique. And so as I'm watching this feet technique and I'm watching him and his posture and his chair and his tuning and all this, I'm like, oh, I'm gaining insights on breathing, because he also sings. You know, he's one of these guys where he'll blast beat and you'll watch his shoulders move and take a breath. He's like,
Wow.
right?
Jeez.
And it was just really great to see that and appreciate that. And then I got to see him at a concert, basically from like me to you, just 10 feet away, 10 feet away.
6 feet.
6 feet. And my eyes just started melting because I'm watching this and I'm sobbing like drunk guy rom-com tears, just wailing on the gate at front row. People are slamming into me and I'm just like, oh, I can't believe seeing this.
They're thinking you're tripping out on something. But
yeah, and he looks me in between songs, because I mean it was that close. I'm just staring at him, just bawling my eyes out, and he's like, you know, mouths the words like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I have your DVD." And then they start the
He's
next
calling
song.
a girl at a Beatles concert.
Full on. So then I was fortunate to get a picture with him, and he signed a stick, and it continues to inspire me that somebody on that level can take that sort of moment and still make it a positive for both of us.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, you didn't be like, security, get him out of here.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So totally approachable and super, super inspirational.
I love it. Here's the time where the romantic anniversary couple get to talk about how each other is their favorite drummer. Well, I know that each of you have made each other cry, but tell me which drummers. Have there been some goosebump or crying moments watching? You first, Michael.
Oh, fine. I got a short list. I mean, on the one hand, there are the drummers whose skill level is just mind-blowingly deep.
Sure.
You know, and I think about my favorite Zappa drummers, you know, Bozio, Wackerman, Caliuto, those three cats, and also from the prog, 80s prog of King Crimson, Bill Buford's work on the Discipline album, and in particular Thrack, which is one of my favorite prog records of all time from King Crimson. But you know, my favorite drummer is a guy who doesn't do that stuff.
Yeah.
And I always come back to Bunny Carlos.
Yeah, but I don't know why, but I was thinking that when you were starting to talk about it.
I love his drumming.
You bet.
It is just, there's just no fluff.
Yeah.
And everything he does, even if it's simple, I think somebody talked about this earlier, that there are Bunny Carlos fills that are absolutely sort of, you know, I mean, they're pretty straightforward stuff, but the way he places them and the way it comes out in the song is just beautiful. And in particular, his sort of the reverse rock beat. You know, it's instead of ka ka, it's ka 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 ka, and it's got this little
the movement.
You know, I love Bunny Carlos.
God.
That moment in Want You to Want Me, where he switches it to halftime for like that little bit, every time.
Yeah, that, you know,
it's the best thing about that song.
The conversation. Well, actually, two guests in the last week, Mark Schulman last week and Kenny Aronoff the other day. Both of them talked about being a servant to the band and a servant to the song. You know, and so there is so much to that. And we talk about less is more and your contribution to the songs as you mature and you really think about how you're bringing some kind of energy and life to a song. You know, Kenny's kind of the king of that, right? He talked about playing on 1,300 albums that have either gone gold, platinum, or diamond. He's on 300 million records out there in the planet. And he's the go-to guy because he plays for the song, you know, and I think, you know, I won't poo-poo Bunny Carlos for any reason like that. You know, he knew how to play it just right for those songs. And it's unfortunate not to have him in that band right now. I think it's a travesty, you know, but that's a different conversation. So
I also think he's so cool because he looks like he does not give He's sitting there with a cigarette. Like,
Yeah.
he does not give a shit about what's going
You're
on.
right. Yeah, that's yeah. Like when I first met Keith Parkhurst, he had a Bunny Carlos vibe about him. That was really there was the like you were wearing glasses then, and you had I think a little mustache.
I was a short, fat, balding office worker. Yeah.
No, you look like you could be Bunny Carlos, man, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I loved it. Renee, two questions for you. I want you to hear about your goosebump or crying drummer moment, and Cheryl wants to know your favorite drum line.
Well, it's okay. I'll go with the drumline one first because
Okay.
about the crybaby stuff. Well, it has to be the Blue Devils. I mean,
Has to be.
It's really hard because they're all so good. But I do have sort of a weird affinity for the Blue Knights because their show last year was just gorgeous, and some of the dynamic writing that they did was amazing, and they always have like really sparkly outfits, you know. but the Blue Devils are just the number one. You know,
Yeah.
they're the number one, and my kid wants to be a Blue Devil, and
Wow.
it's very competitive, but at the same time, I just think it's a lifestyle, you know.
Yeah.
Santa Clara Vanguard's amazing also, but it's really hard to pick one because I think sometimes you can like a drum line, but maybe you don't like their show. You're like, what the hell was that?
Right.
You know, what was that thing on the field? I don't know. You know,
Bob.
so sometimes, yeah. So, but Blue Devils are pretty much up there right now.
Where are they
Blue
based?
Knights for somewhere in my heart. You know.
Where are the Blue Devils based?
Concord, California, I believe. Down there. Yeah.
All right, now your drummer, your favorite. Oh, you know, Cheryl says the Blue Knights were influenced by Ralph Hardiman. So there you go.
He was just online with the Alan Cowan camp. Skojo, Scott Johnson.
Yeah.
Not Ralph Hardiman, but yeah, well, Ralph Nader. Not the politician, but the other Ralph Nader.
Right.
The guy with the sticks.
Yeah.
And stuff, so he was doing that. Yeah.
I have some Ralph Hardman sticks that lasted me
Oh,
over
yeah.
20 years.
They last a long time. A lot of kids tape them though to get the little bit of the weight in the bottom.
Love them.
But so for the baby moment,
Cryberry.
The what? 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 You saying something?
No. Carry on. Carry on.
Happily married. Ah!
Carry
They
on.
were married till today.
I know. It's
You
really
were here.
hard if I had anything that affected me so emotionally.
A good run.
My face got peeled back when Zappa Does Zappa came, and then Terry did his big solo, and Paul Mostellato I think was playing, and it wasn't Ed Mann, but it was like some other, like that band. So drummers in general don't really elicit an emotional it's more admiration. And if I had to say I admired one drummer right now, it'd be Steve Gadd.
Oh yeah.
He's just like,
It's all about the feel.
he's the linear master. He's got the groove. I mean, I've part of my repertoire is playing Crazy Army, the drum solo. So when I have to do a clinic, I'll whip out Crazy Army and show why kids need to learn their rudiments on the drum set.
Sure.
And it goes off on linear at the very end. But like his nuance is so amazing, and he's just so groovy. You know?
Yeah. No,
And he places everything. There's nothing out of place.
he's the doctor.
He did a trio, not a trio, but like a drummers thing. It was that one, I think it was in the 90s. It was
Weckl.
like Vinny and Weckl and Gad. And Weckl and Vinny are doing crazy shit, and Gad's just like, boom, boom. And it's just like, it's for some reason so much more interesting and moving.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's so simple. And he's like,
musical.
he's popping up, he's standing, you know,
yeah.
something
Image
about
one more though, because
Yeah.
on the female side, I'm really a fan of Emmanuel Capelet.
Oh, she's wicked.
She's really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need more role models like that. And
Yeah.
I mean, all my influences and all my role models are men, and I don't have an issue with that. But I just am here to sort of represent a little bit.
Yeah, I'm glad you are. And it's really cool to see, I think, like the major drum networks really showing Emmanuel and Anika Miles and some of those other, great drummers. I was going to weigh in just on the drummers that make you cry, because I think a lot of it for me is the experience in a particular band situation, because I have favorite drummers for all sorts of different reasons, but I think about experiences that were the drummer was a part of that was helpful in it. And Vinny was that guy for me. When I watched the three drum, the Modern Drummer Festival that you're talking about, Andrew, with Gad and Weckl and Vinny, at that point, Weckl was my favorite drummer, but I was blown away by him going back and forth with Vinny until I realized how beautiful what Gad was playing because it was so musical. But Vinny playing with Sting about 20 years ago, my ex-wife Jan and I went out to the Gorge to see Sting play with Vinny at this amazing show, and there was a meteor shower above us at the Gorge, and so we sat listening to Vinny play 7 days, watching this meteor shower, and his composition on that song in particular blows my mind. It's one of those songs that the parts are really unique and odd time, but he makes it feel like it's completely straight and appropriate for the song. And then watching, this astral, beautiful view it was one of those things that I sobbed in the grass. It was amazing. So Vinny, if you're out there, you made me cry. Yeah. Thinking about those drummers, too, I talked about Kenny on the conversation the other day. And if you didn't see it, go back and watch his part 1. I have him coming up on August 5th for part 2. But I asked him, I said, his earlier days, and he talks about, 64, watching the Ed Sullivan Show, and I watched Ringo when I was just a little kid, and I saw him play, and I told my mom, call them, I want to do that gig. And she said, I'm not going to call the Beatles and get you that gig. And he was so mad at his mom for not getting the gig. And then 50 years later, he's on stage with McCartney playing side by side dual drums with Ringo for the Kennedy Awards. And he said, and I said, please tell me that your mom was alive and she was watching that. And he said, oh yeah, she saw it. And I said, did you look over and kind of like smirk and wink at her? And for me, that was like one of the coolest moments of hearing his stories, that he's on stage with those guys that made him cry at an early age, so he wins. Hands down,
you
Mr.
keep it together and do your job.
Yeah. The nice thing too about it was he talked about how humbling it was, how his gratitude was fantastic. But as we all know, as we get older and you notice the magic in Ringo's playing, I was guilty of dogging Ringo for a long time because he's so simple, whatever. And then you realize that and Kenny pointed it out. He said, try to copy and emulate his playing. Yeah. He said, different. It's just, there's a tiny lilt, there's a little swing to his left-handed lead playing the right-handed kit, and it's really impossible. If you're going to be, if you see Beatles tribute bands, those cats have to practice their 10,000 hours to get Ringo down before they get anywhere close, right? So, yeah, for sure. And
he's a little behind, a little bit, but it's not off.
It's just it's so different than any other drummer out there. If you contrast that with the crazy blast chop prog guys right now, and those guys might be dogging Ringo, but Ringo's laughing all the way to the bank. So
it's one of those things where there's a number of songs you could point out where there's like just a vault in that one song. There's a vault of weird Ringo stuff. For me, it's Ticket to Ride, because it's swings and then it's straight and then it's back and then there's like this weird almost blast beat like fill with the tom and the snare. So all kinds of weird stuff going on in there, and I know there's a bunch of those tunes where
Ticket to Ride you're talking about.
That's Ticket to Ride. There's a bunch of other ones where you're just like, and I've seen him break down, I think it was Come Together, he's like, it's just this, and I did it this way because I started with my left hand and I have to end here, and right. It's simple, but it's try to copy it, you can't.
It's there's some magic there for sure. But speaking of magic, I feel like it's been cathartic and magical just to see your smiling faces here, everybody. I know that we're all missing gigs right now, whether it be a live performance or lessons or being out on the road. I know for me it's an odd thing to be home, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys all being here with us. Andrew, it's so cool, Andrew, for you to have come up with this idea. I think it's a really great thing, and I want to keep doing it because.
Thanks for helping me with it.
I get so many different perspectives. I get to hang out with my friends here, and for those of you that don't know each other, it's really cool to kind of get, different angles here from somebody that you may not have run across because they're maybe in a different scene. But um, I just want to thank you for being here. We'll make sure that when I archive this online, that we've got your individual links. I'd love to be able to help promote and point people towards your sites. I noticed, Michael, on your Michael Jarmer site, you've got both your writing and your musical connections there, kind of like your old multi-purpose blog. And René, you've got your music and your education piece together.
Drumline site.
Yeah, and on the Drumline site, which, by the way, I'm so proud of what you did with Kingsman Thunder this year. That floor show, I know that you won awards this year, and it really.
We're moving up class next year. It's kind of scary.
Caleb was floored. My son was just blown away to look at the development over just a few years, what you've done with that.
Well, he was in it before we started competing. So
yeah.
So competition is crazy. And, I have to do a lot of grant writing and fundraising to make it go. We're the only one in this entire area. Kids move to Putnam to be in it, and I love it. It's very passionate, although sometimes it keeps us from maybe writing music like we need to. He's like, yo,
it takes time, but think about the impact that you're having on all those people, though, and every single one of you guys in your own regard has made a huge impact on me, and I know you have a lot on the community. So I thank you. I applaud you. I love you all. I'm glad you're healthy and you're staying productive and out of trouble. We're all going to have to relocate to Merrill's new media room soon so that we can listen to some prog music and watch Marvel movies, right? So
that's right. I just bought Close to the Edge and Songs from the Woods in 5.1. So
there we go. Nice.
Can't wait to get listen to those in a little bit different light. So
I love it. Hey, and thank 5 Star Guitars again for being there and supporting this. It's been really, really nice to be working with you. For those of you that are sticking around this next week and you want to hang out and watch some more shows, tomorrow we've got Cutting Crew. I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight from the 80s. Tuesday, Steve Ferlazzo, music director for Avril Lavigne, keyboardist from the band, plays with Nuno Betancourt, guy's legitimate player. All sorts of great guests. Michael Williams, the Much Music VJ, is happening this week. And like I said, I've got Todd Zuckerman coming up here shortly. Got another Kenny Aronoff episode happening. Dave Aberzies and Melvin Brannon will be on soon. So all sorts of great guests. Keep an eye on the All Access Live Facebook page for the events. And then if you have not yet, subscribe to this channel on youtube.com/All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. I have a couple of gift cards. I'm giving away $50 gift cards to random subscribers once I hit 500. So do that, share it with your friends. And if you guys don't mind, send me the personal links that you'd like added to the site and I'll get those on the page. Thank you so much for spending an afternoon with me and happy anniversary.
All of you again.
Yes.
Happy anniversary, Jarmers.
All right.
Anniversary Jarmers. Merrill, I love you.
Take me out. You taking me out.
All right, you guys.
Love you more.
Have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.